Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Kamala Harris becomes just the second woman to be a major party nominee for president. That's a wrap for the Democratic National Convention 24, which had rumors.
Was it going to be Beyonce? Was it going to be Taylor Swift? We got Governor Roy Cooper introducing Kamala Harris.
And some policy and some Republicans.
Well, if Mittens had been, take him.
And don't call it price controls. Harris's potential ban on price gouging had its start in legislation proposed by Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
In the same way that the FTC, for example, has tools to be able to deal with deceptive pricing and deceptive advertising, it should have the ability to deal with price gouging.
She joins us for a spirited debate on inflated prices.
Did you invite me on here just to lecture to me?
No, I just want to ask you.
The whole point is to get markets that are more competitive.
Plus,
there are Taco Bell people and there's Chipotle people.
And Cava people, the fast casual Mediterranean chain's leader on taking on the big guys.
Our growth plan is 1,000 restaurants by 2032.
3 times as many as you have now, but still only a third of what Chipotle has, roughly.
Yeah.
It's Friday, August 23rd. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Cue, please.
Good Friday morning and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Kelly Evans along with Joe Kernen. Becky and Andrew are off today.
That is green.
It is brat green.
It's a beautiful green.
Thank you.
I already had an argument in makeup.
Over what color?
Is it Kelly green? I mean, no, by definition today it's Kelly green. But is that the actual shade of green that's referred to as Kelly?
No, this is like more neon.
More of a neon green.
It's like CNBC green.
I think it's money green.
Money green.
Because we're going to talk all about the guy who prints all the money.
We are.
Later.
That's right. It's in honor of Powell.
Did you think about any of this? Not really.
I was really thinking, there's, the brat meme that's been going around all summer. I'm not much aware, but I'm enough aware of these. So the summer's almost over, and I thought, well, maybe.
Go. If you're going to do it.
If you're going to do it.
Can't do that in like November.
No, I don't think so.
We will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed.
Vice President Kamala Harris accepted her party's nomination for president last night at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. Megan Cassella is there. She joins us with the highlights. And Megan, I couldn't quite tell from this. So there was no surprise guest after all that?
After all that discussion of a surprise guest, was it going to be Beyonce? Was it going to be Taylor Swift? We got Governor Roy Cooper introducing Kamala Harris, but it wasn't quite the fanfare that everybody was expecting. But good morning, Kelly, from downtown Chicago. We're just a few miles away from that United Center where folks are already breaking down after that fourth and final night last night. But despite no surprise guest, the energy last night was as high as any night that we had seen it this week. There were still some celebrities in attendance. The Chicks performed the national anthem. Kerry Washington was the celebrity host MC. And Pink performed on stage with her daughter as well. We also heard from a range of elected officials, all the way from Senator Elizabeth Warren on the left. She teared up as she got a standing ovation.
You know what I love best about Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris can't be bought, and she can't be bossed around.
To former Congressman Adam Kinzinger on the right, a Republican member of Congress.
I know Kamala Harris shares my allegiance to the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy, and she is dedicated to upholding all three in service to our country. Whatever policies we disagree on pale in comparison with those fundamental matters of principle, of decency, and of fidelity to this nation.
But of course, the spotlight for the evening was on Vice President Harris herself. She was formally accepting that nomination. And she used her acceptance speech to once again introduce herself to the American people. She focused a lot on her record, especially her record before she got to Washington, a part that most people aren't as familiar with. Take a listen to this.
I took on the big banks. delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure, and helped pass a homeowner bill of rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation.
Now, Harris also spoke about growing up as part of a middle-class family, and she used that biography to connect to the policy agenda, which last night she was calling, quote, a new way forward. She was also looking to strike a contrast between her vision and that we've seen from former President Trump. Listen to this.
He intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
Now, for a speech that was always expected to be light on policy details, we did hear Harris touch on a number of different issues. She spoke about NATO and Ukraine. She talked about China and the need for the U.S. to be a global leader on artificial intelligence. And NBC News did talk with her just briefly after her speech.
Madam Vice President, how do you feel tonight?
I feel good. Now on to tomorrow.
Good to see you last night, yeah.
Congratulations to you.
It was sort of a nod to just how much work Democrats feel that they have left to do between now and November. And now, guys, one last point. We were hearing from former President Trump throughout the evening last night. He was live posting on Truth Social as Harris was speaking. He was accusing Harris of, quote, gaslighting America. And he did question that why, for all of her policy ideas right now, he's asking why she wasn't implementing these in the 3.5 years that she's been vice president. Guys?
And from what I heard, Megan, did she also defend Israel's right to defend itself? How did that part of the speech go over?
She touched on Israel and Gaza, and it is interesting. This was supposed to be a hot-button issue this week. There were protests every day over Gaza, but it wasn't nearly what anybody expected. And so that part of the speech did go through. She spoke about that foreign policy agenda, which I think was a surprise to most people. People really did accept it in the arena, and it was just part of something. I heard a lot of commentary in real time of folks saying, you know, for someone who doesn't have much foreign policy experience at all, she's been a lawyer her career, a prosecutor. She doesn't have much foreign policy experience, but she dove into those details. And I heard commentary from folks like Ben Rhodes, the Obama administration official focused on foreign policy, saying this is someone who seemed ready to be president right now. I think she was seeking to make that point.
All right, Megan, appreciate it. This morning, Megan Cassella in Chicago.
If you have truly do have a surprise guest, you don't
tell people.
You try to get the.
So what do you do if the rumors going around? It probably boosted ratings, don't you think?
Yeah, but you try to build up the idea. You do. Did you hear who they were? I mean,
people kept saying Beyonce was going to show
up.
No,
Don Lemon. I mean, why? I never thought I'd say
that
those.
That wasn't in my.
I never thought I'd say those two words together. But Don Lemon. The rumors were Taylor Swift was the big one. Was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because Michael Jordan.
I didn't
Republicans,
see that one
no, not.
I saw the Mitt Romney.
Well,
I thought Mitt Romney was very funny.
My point was that Taylor Swift has a lot of fans. Michael Jordan said Republicans buy sneakers too. If Taylor Swift doesn't need any more fans, obviously, but I don't think they'd let her. I don't think you'd want to alienate.
Yeah.
And then Mitt Romney, I don't know. He belongs there probably. That would have been fine. That would have not.
That was fun.
I heard George W. Bush. And he would never do that. He hasn't said a word since he left.
But people did use that to make the point, oh, he wasn't at the RNC. Oh, all the former presidents were in the Democratic.
Of course he wasn't, because of low-energy Jeb. It's never going to happen. The Bushes hate him. Bill Kristol hates him. All the Lincoln Project hates him. We know who hates him. You know who doesn't hate him? Adam Kinzinger. You know who's not from the right, as we just heard? Adam Kinzinger. All right?
All I know is that I think the rumor they used as a convenient way to drive a wedge between, look at one party who's able to show unity and the other who can't,
Well, if Mittens had been, take him. Late yesterday, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Withdrew from the ballot in Arizona, and multiple reports say Kennedy will announce today that he's withdrawing from the presidential race. I don't know whether he's endorsing Donald Trump. Supposedly Don Jr. and Tucker Carlson have been working on him to make that happen, but
is that why Polymarket's not coming off the highs?
And just listening to Trump yesterday, he said, I don't know whether he went to great lengths not to build up expectations that was coming. Robert F. Kennedy's married to Cheryl Hines.
No.
Robert F. Kennedy's married. I don't expect you to.
No, from Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Robert F. Kennedy is married to Cheryl Hines. She's already on the record saying he knows how I feel, and there's conjecture around that would never happen. You know how anti-Trump she is. But
all I know is if that was a reason why Trump's winning odds had gone up to, what were they, 53? They're down to 51
Who knows
this
why
morning.
they were up?
Could be that, could be the DNC.
Could be some of the policies that
I'm sure that, I think that was part of why, but I mean, they're now off the highs.
He still might, that he was ahead at all on popular market during the DNC, a 10-point shift was very strange.
Absolutely.
Was very strange. But Kennedy's scheduled to speak today in Phoenix. They're like in the same state. Then hours later, Trump was holding a rally in neighboring Glendale.
Close.
Trump's campaign said yesterday that he would be joined by a special guest at that Glendale.
Here we go again. If there's not a real special, don't do this to us 2 days in a row. There's going to be a special guest. Well, I guess special is different than surprise
I think it might be Beyonce. It'd be more likely to be Beyonce than Mitt Romney to join Trump.
Which shows how unlikely it is.
But whether RFK Jr., and you wonder what kind of what he's being offered.
Well, that's the thing. Which voter is going to go? What position is he going to hold? The Labor Department.
No, I don't know what. Just because it's so symmetrical and it would be amazing as AG, like his father. His father was Attorney General. You know that, right? I mean,
now I know.
Cheese will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod.
This is the way you never lose an argument, because no one can ever say anything back to you, Senator.
A lively discussion with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's defending and explaining one headline-making part of Vice President Harris's economic agenda, preventing price gouging at the federal level.
Where have you been for the last 30 years as 36 states have price gouging laws, and they have used them effectively? States like Texas and Florida.
You don't want to miss this. Welcome back. This is Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernen and Kelly Evans. Here's Joe.
The Harris campaign has yet to give specifics on the vice president's plan to ban price gouging or actually put on some price controls, basically. But our next guest worked with Harris on an anti-price gouging bill in 2020 during the pandemic. A similar bill was reintroduced in the Senate earlier this year. Joining us now, Massachusetts Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, you're famous from last night. Oh, you're already famous, but you're even more famous from last night. Kind of a pretty nice moment for you, I have to say.
Well, it was a moment for me about democracy. Why all these people had shown up because they want to be in the fight. And they want to be in the fight because they want to see an America where they can afford to pay for their prescription drugs. They want to see an America where their kids can afford to go to college without getting crushed by student loan debt. They want to see an America where we're going to strengthen Social Security, not, as Donald Trump did, propose 4 budgets in a row that cut it. So I saw this as a room full of volunteers who are in the fight all the way.
Senator, I actually wish Donald Trump would consider doing something to entitlements and stuff, but I don't think that's really the case. Senator, the price gouging.
But here's what the Washington. Remember, he did try. 4 times in a row.
I wish he would to actually, maybe move it out to 70 or 75, because something's got to be done, because it's going to be untenable the way it is. Look at the Washington Post, and if you lose the Washington Post as a Democrat, you got some serious problems. This is what they said about the price gouging or the price control legislation. It was really pilloried from both sides of the aisle. Even Jason Furman, I don't know if you saw some of his comments. He said it's not good policy, and it could actually do more harm than good. And I can paint you a picture of how that would work and how it's worked in the past, where we've tried to artificially hold prices down. Competition doesn't come in. People don't, like if beef is too high, people don't move the chicken. The competitors don't come in to undercut where the beef prices are. Nothing works when you try to artificially control prices. It's just a supply and demand issue. It's a flawed idea.
So did you have a question here?
Yes. Why would you propose a flawed idea when the real problem
So let
if you
me
really
ask
want to help the
question.
middle class, if you really sincerely want to help people having trouble at the grocery store, it's not price gouging that's the issue. And if you look at it seriously and really want to help them, then let's do something about it together. Fine.
So, I understand if you want to do a lecture about this, but let's just start with where have you been for the last 30 years as 36 states have price gouging laws, and they have used them effectively. States like Texas and Florida, they've used price gouging laws. Price gouging laws are not price control. Price gouging laws are to say, sometimes markets go off the rails. And when they do, we need some ways to get them back on the rails. We need some curbs on that behavior. So, for example, we watched in the pandemic how prices went up for a whole lot of reasons. They went up partly because we had supply chain kinks, we had problems because of the war in Ukraine that cut supplies of certain commodities. And one of the things that happened as a result of that is there were corporations that said, whoa, now that we have inflation, now that prices are up overall, this is a great opportunity for us to raise prices, not just in passing along costs, but to go way, way, way above that. And how do we know that it was way, way above just passing along costs? Look at what happened to their profit margins. If they'd just been passing along costs, profit margins would have stayed about the same. But for some industries, some companies, profit margins shot up. And do you know where they shot up most often? It was in companies or in industries where there was a lot of concentration, a lot of market power, places where the market is not functioning competitively. So you end up with someone, you remember we all talked about egg prices. You end up with something like this giant egg producer, Cal-Maine. And Cal-Maine raises the price of eggs. Their profit margins increase by 718%. That's not just passing along costs.
Senator,
and that is a time
that's sophistry. Your example on Kraft. Your example on Kraft is even worse.
You finished first. In any of
the interview is only
states
going to be
around
6
the
minutes.
country that already have price gouging
Can I
laws
tell you why
in
that
place.
those are fallacious and misleading at best? And your
So,
Kraft
look,
analogy is even. Why can't I tell you? Please let me tell you. Kraft, you say, was 440% profit increase. The example you used, the prior quarter from the year before, they had a charge of $1.3 billion, an accounting change which wiped out profits. Then they earned what they normally. Let me finish now. They earned.
You didn't let me finish. Look at the data. Come on. We have economic study now after economic study.
This is the way it
and what do they
always
show?
goes.
When there is more
Senator,
concentration,
40 million eggs were destroyed because of avian flu.
When there is more concentration in an industry, we have seen much greater increases.
Do you attribute the inflation?
Margins.
That's what you think we need to do to solve it?
They're not random. They are not random one-offs. It is part of the problem when you've got companies that are gouging consumers on prices. Consumers need to know they've got somebody on their side.
Senator,
and
listen,
it's
we're trying to help. We're trying to actually do.
Where are you in the 37 states that currently have price gouging laws?
Just quickly on that point, Senator Warren,
this
is Kelly here. Can I just
clarify
how this would work?
This is the way you never lose an argument because no one can ever say anything back to you, Senator.
The state price gouging laws they look at when a state of emergency is declared, and they, for the most part, say if your prices go up 10 or 15% compared to before that state of emergency, you have to pay a fine. So on a national level, how exactly would this work? Would you define the state of emergency? Does it have to be declared on a national level? Are you then talking about a 10 or 15% increase in prices versus prior to that declaration, and then companies have to pay a fine? Okay, fine. Maybe that applies in 1% of the situations. But this legislation, which is still vague, is making it sound like something on the scale of broad price controls would be imposed, broadly speaking. So which of the two systems is it?
So it is not price controls. This is about when the market itself is not functioning. Sometimes markets don't function because there's been a localized emergency, a hurricane, a wildfire, flooding. And so in states that have these price gouging laws, they can come in and say, look, you can do some price increases, but if you're going above a certain level, you have to be able to justify it.
Right.
You have
So
to
is it
show that
company
what you're
by
doing is
company?
passing along costs.
Would it be company by company?
Hold on,
Reasonable
Senator,
thing to
let's go back to cow main, because avian flu caused the destruction of 40 million eggs. They have 20% market share. They have 20%, but they don't control the market. It's like OPEC, or it's like oil. When oil prices go up for whatever reason, or they go down, when they go down, the price is set for oil. The reason that cow main made that money was because that's what happened to the price. The next quarter, they went down in half. They lost 50% of the profits from the last one. They don't set that price. That's and neither do the Exxon does not set the price of oil. So when Exxon has $80 or $100 a barrel, yes, they make record profits. When there was a pandemic, their profits went to almost zero. Now, it's just the way it is. And to think that the government can decide when prices are too high or too low, the grocery chains have a 2% profit margin. How about Apple with 50% or 40%? How do you decide? This is not the government's place to do these things. It's a fool's errand. And it also is you're using it to divert the real cause of inflation over the last 4 years, which was because you had demand after the pandemic, which obviously, there was a lot because we reopened, and all of a sudden there's supply chain issues, and the demand is juiced by all the stimulus from the IRA and all the other spending that we did.
There have been many causes for inflation. We all understand that. That's why I started my answer in talking about this. But one of the causes of prices going up is that there are companies that have market dominance that have said, oh, this is a moment when everyone is talking about...
Name another one. Give me an instance.
If you give me an instance. Finish my argument here?
Okay, go ahead.
That they have gone on earnings calls and said over and over, inflation has been very, very good. Go listen to the earnings calls from the CEO of Chipotle, who says, this is an opportunity not to pass along costs. This is an opportunity for us to raise prices beyond passing along costs and increase our profit margins. And what the academic studies, I let you finish, what the academic studies show is that industry by industry, when you see more competition, which suggests more pricing power, what we saw is that profit margins went up. And that's the problem we've got, is that states have tools to deal with this locally. But right now, we want to make sure that the FTC has the tools to do it nationally, and that the states that don't have price gouging laws also have access to those same tools.
We have
in the same way that the FTC, for example, has tools to be able to deal with deceptive pricing and deceptive advertising. It should have the ability to deal with price gouging.
Senator,
it's just another tool in the toolbox to say we support
for a state of emergency.
Competitive
is it
markets.
For a state of emergency?
Senator,
that the whole
when
point
did
is
companies
to have,
learn how to do this?
I let you finish your argument.
But I know, but now
Did
I
you
get
invite
your
me
point.
on here just to lecture to me?
No, I just want to ask you.
The whole point is to get markets that are more competitive. And that's the job of the FTC. That's something state attorneys general work on. We just want to put one more tool in the toolbox when CEOs are going on the phone saying, boy, inflation is great because it gives us a chance to raise our prices.
It's not about diverting the attention away from the real issues that might actually help the middle class that you always talk about helping. For 40 years, companies didn't know how to price gouge until 3.5 years ago when President Biden was elected. Where was the price gouging? We had 40-year highs in inflation. Where was the price? They just learned how to do this 3.5 years ago?
No, the difference is prices were not going up. And as I said, prices started going up for a whole host of reasons. Prices went up because of the pandemic, prices went up because of supply chain kinks, prices went up because of the war in Ukraine. Prices were going up. And the difference is when they started going up sharply and people noticed that some companies also noticed and said, you know, we could raise our prices just passing along costs. That's what you do in a competitive market.
This is not widespread,
but some
Senator.
companies,
This is not widespread.
I let you finish. In some markets, what we've seen, in markets where there's less competition, that CEOs said we can do more than pass along costs. And you don't have to take my word for it. Do you listen to earnings calls?
I listen
These
to
guys have
Senator,
gotten on
the example you use for
I
Kraft.
let you finish.
The example you use
People,
for Kraft
I let
is totally
you finish.
fallacious. It's totally
I let
fallacious.
You,
You throw the numbers.
and you just want to keep talking. The earnings calls CEOs have gotten out. It's well documented, and they have said we can raise our prices far more than passing along costs, and said to their investors, we have a great future ahead of us because
not
our
a monopoly.
profit margins are going to increase.
Other companies come in. That's the way the system
works. In
works.
places where there's more concentration. That's the whole point. It makes your point. When markets are less
has only
competitive,
20%.
There's more price gouging. When markets are more competitive, it's not price. There is no price gouging.
Would it be a state of emergency? The only last thing, Senator Warren, just to give people a sense, are we talking about what period of time for declaring when we're looking, is a state of emergency? How do we define the period of time? And then by what percentage, 10, 15%? And then are we talking about fining companies? Is it modeled on the state approach here?
The question you ask is the same question that people want to ask about what is fraud, what is deceptive advertising. The answer is that you look at all of the facts and say, do we see a competitive market where a buyer can understand what it is that they're being offered? And do we have a seller that's meeting that buyer? Are they competing with other sellers? That's what we do in antitrust law all
it's
day
just the vagueness
long.
Of terms.
There's nothing special here. It's putting one more tool in the toolbox when there's a lot of concentration in an industry, and that starts pushing prices up.
The example for Kraft, if it was done in a straightforward way, Senator, it would just be, your argument would be much better. When you say Kraft raised profits 440%, it was because the year before they had taken an accounting charge which brought their profit down to zero. So when they earn a normal profit the next quarter of $800 million, your people put out information that it's up 440%. That's disingenuous. As Kelly puts out, competition, the cure for higher prices is when people come in and undercut those prices and supply goes back up. This has been since 1770.
Especially in the restaurant business.
Take yes for an answer. When there is competition, prices will reach the right level.
Then we need antitrust laws and anti-monopoly laws.
Yes, we do.
Oh,
yes,
we have them.
do.
We already have them. We don't need to layer another one on here that works on what? What are the number of cases you're talking about? 1%?
No. So listen again to the studies. When there is more concentration.
I think I saw the study from Groundworks. It's a liberal think tank, Senator. From Groundworks, that one?
Look, if you don't want to pay attention to the numbers, you can ignore them, you can ignore the calls. But the reality
not
is,
paying attention to the numbers,
I let
Senator.
you talk.
Okay. Go
the
ahead.
reality is the American people know what's happening in pricing. They understand that they are being gouged on prices. And who they blame for that are these giant corporations.
No, they blame the
that
Biden
dominate
administration.
No, you blame the Biden administration.
I don't blame
because you cannot bear the notion that sometimes these competitive markets are in fact not competitive. And when they're not, CEOs have found ways to juice their profits at the expense of the American public. And you may not like that, but the American people understand what's happening, and they want to have people in government who at least have tools in the toolbox to be able to respond when it happens.
So
and
prices, inflation has already come down without any of this happening. How does that happen? Why do companies stop gouging? Why did cow mane?
Well,
why did the prices come down 50% immediately? Why does it happen?
I'm not at all clear that prices have come down.
Oh, so
a lot of companies in very concentrated industries have raised their prices and are sitting.
The rate of inflation has come down.
And are sitting on much bigger profit margins than they were sitting on
in the food industry. They're less
ago.
than the profit margins are less than they were before the pandemic, Senator. In the food industry.
They are not in industries where there's more concentration. Look, I get it. You want to pretend that markets will always correct themselves.
No, I just wanted to. I want to try to actually do. I want to try to actually conquer inflation, and this won't do it.
I am somebody who believes in competitive markets. That's what I want to see happen. That's what I'm out there fighting for. But competitive markets won't happen on their own. When these companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, one of the consequences is that they start figuring out other ways to juice their profits. They do things like they cut quality, they stop innovating, and they start building up their profit margins. Yeah, we have antitrust laws, and thank goodness for Lena Khan, who's out there starting to enforce them, and to say these giant companies cannot just dominate entire markets and do whatever they want because we don't get the benefits then of markets. This is just one more tool in the toolbox to deal with companies that use their dominance to be able to boost their profit margins. That's all.
Tell me we're out of time, Senator. It's been real and it's been fun. It's been and it's good to go back and forth. We've done this before, and we're going to have to agree to disagree. I think that the way that the United States came out of the pandemic, you want to thank the government. I think the private sector we can thank for the 15 million jobs and everything else. So I think we need to embrace it. There may be a few bad actors, but the whole idea that it's all about these bad corporations is just ill-conceived. But thanks for your time.
She let you finish.
She did. To end the interview.
No, but she had the last word.
Next on Squawk Pod, we will talk to a food CEO about price management. Cava's Brett Schulman joins us.
From the end of 19 to the end of 23, we only raised prices about 12% during that time period. CPI went up about 18%. The Department of Labor has noted that fast food has raised prices upwards of 30%. So it's really enhanced our relative value proposition.
You're listening to Squawk Pod from CNBC.
Stand by, Joe. In 3, 2, 1, his mic cue.
I'm Joe Kernen along with Kelly Evans. Becky and Andrew are off today.
Look at shares of Cava, by the way, if you want to see where some of the excitement is. The Mediterranean chain, they're soaring after they raised their full-year outlook. Second quarter results beat analyst estimates. We're talking about a 10% pop in the stock. Comp sales are up 14.4%, and they expect full-year comps now to rise by as much as 9.5%, up from the previous forecast of just 6.5%. The restaurant chain said customers flocked to its new grilled steak offering during the quarter, despite the higher price tag, and they raised prices in January less than 3%, say they have no plans for another increase this year. CEO Brett Schulman will join us. I'm back in a Cava moment. We were early adopters, and I didn't go for a while. And I just had the steak 2 days ago.
I've only been once, but I see why people like it.
It's good. It
is really good. It's like it's not. I love Mexican food, so it's like almost looks like it. It's like wrapped in some thing, and it's spicy, and a lot of flavor. So
but I think that people who compare it to Chipotle, I'm like, I still feel like Chipotle has broader appeal.
Not to me. That's it. No, Taco Bell. If I'm gonna get. That's why they stole the guy from Taco Bell, who's now at Starbucks. But
by the way, to his credit, he did not, worsen the quality of the Chipotle food while he was there. He did not go that route that some of the purists might have worried about. He understood how to, keep the culture what it was. And
there are Taco Bell people and there's Chipotle people.
This is not like a Dunkin' Starbucks
Chipotle is much higher brow people. Taco Bell is like.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know if Cava can go as mainstream as Chipotle.
Probably not.
I don't know, but we'll talk to him about it.
Joining us now in a first on CNBC interview is Cava co-founder and CEO Brett Schulman. We're getting all the background.
Fascinating.
It is, because I can't believe it's been 5 quarters already that you've been able to report since Cava, and I can't believe the stock performance. Although, as I said, I've eaten there, and I do believe the stock performance. I really liked it. I've only been there once, but the 5th quarter, you said you would characterize it as maybe the best quarter you've had.
Yeah, the 9.5% traffic growth is just a great performance and a testament to the appeal of our Mediterranean cuisine. And I want to give a shout out to our 10,000 team members across the country who deliver on our mission to bring heart, health, and humanity every day. And I think our results are a reflection of that. You
were one of the co-founders in the original Cava. We just found out it's still around. It's Cava Meze, did you say, in Rockville, Maryland, and they pioneered. That's where you got the idea, I think.
Yeah, so all my co-founders are sons of Greek immigrants, and the brand's origins go back to 2006 when they opened a single full-service restaurant, still there today in Rockville, Maryland, and then started selling the dips and spreads. Think our crazy feta, our harissa, and a couple local Whole Foods. I was introduced to my co-founders from a friend from college who cousin is one of my co-founders, and they asked me to join up, be their 4th partner, and we took elements of both of those businesses, the full-service restaurant and our grocery products, and put it in a fast, health-based format to really unleash the power of this food to the world.
Can we talk just about how you're pricing things? If we've got price gouging legislation around. Have you raised prices more than your costs have increased?
I think that's been one of the things that has really helped us drive our success and drive our traffic. If you think about from the end of 19 to the end of 23, we only raised prices about 12% during that time period. CPI went up about 18%. The Department of Labor has noted that fast food has raised prices upwards of 30%. So it's really enhanced our relative value proposition and able to deliver a really compelling value to our guests, which obviously it's clearly resonating. And even recently in California with the legislation AB 1228, I think we were the only limited service brand that did not take incremental price as a result of some of the legislated wage increases.
Are you taking losses, though, or taking margin hits because you're growing so fast you can deal with it down the road? You can maybe even take some share from other players because profitability is not the main focus right now?
Well, that's the power of our economic model. Our 2-year same restaurant sales growth is over 30% this quarter. And that's allowed us to not only invest in our team members, so we've invested in wages 9% year over year, mitigate cost increases to our guests, and expand restaurant level margin at the same time.
I don't know, that was the question I had. I don't know how you can raise prices less than what your costs were increasing.
Well, I think it's how we've built this business from the very beginning. We have vertically integrated production capabilities. So we have 2 manufacturing facilities where we make our fresh dips and spreads, that tzatziki with fresh cucumber, fresh dill, just like Chef Dimitri made in that original Cava restaurant, but we're making it in 9,000-pound batches. And that allows us to take the complexity out of the 4 walls of our restaurants and bring you that fresh product at scale consistently with quality and cost effectiveness. We source over 85% of our ingredients directly from our grower rancher partners. And we've invested in wages, like I said. Even back in 2016, we took our national starting wage to $13 an hour when many were paying $9 and $10 and $11 an hour. And, that equals great service, great experience, and that's translated into great growth, which obviously we get leveraged on our fixed occupancy costs and other fixed costs.
How much have you looked to something like a Chipotle as a template for what you can achieve? I mean, it's not as if you came from having launched already a successful fast casual chain yourself. It's hard to get it right the first time. So what is the blueprint? What is the game plan? And many people, there's all these memes going around after the quarter where people are saying your market cap is $37 million per Cava location right now. Even Chipotle is only 21. In other words, the market is assigning a huge premium to what you're doing. But what does the growth blueprint look like?
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the belief in our massive white space opportunity and the fact that we believe we're creating and defining what we think is going to be the next large-scale cultural cuisine category in Mediterranean. That unique cuisine where you don't have to sacrifice flavor for your health. And so our growth plan is 1,000 restaurants by 2032. So that's about a 15% plus compound annual unit growth rate.
3 times as many as you have now, but still only a third of what Chipotle has, roughly.
Yeah, so we're still pretty small in that regard, and I say restaurants do not scale like SaaS software. It takes a lot of great people, a lot of process, a lot of infrastructure that we've invested in heavily over the years to be able to scale like we're growing today.
what does it mean for where you end up? Where are you not right now? And what are the plans? How many do you add per year? And that must be hard to do.
Yeah, it's that's the other great thing about this white space opportunity. We operate in 25 states in the District of Columbia today.
Okay.
We just opened our first locations in the Upper Midwest in Chicago. So we have those are our only locations in the Upper Midwest. We're not in the Pacific Northwest or Northern California. Plus, we think we have tremendous depth and breadth of expansion in the 25 states we operate in today.
You're not going to 50?
Someday we aspire to be in all 50 states across the US.
So how many are you averaging new ones per year?
Yeah, so this year we raised our guidance from to 54 to 57 new locations this year, and then we've kind of committed to 15% plus growth rate from here on out.
And inflation at this point is not like it was.
Yeah, we've seen it pretty benign on our input costs, and really has receded from the supply chain shocks we saw coming out of the pandemic.
It's weird the way that works, because other people come in and where there's an opportunity, the supply increases naturally. So I think I learned that in 1776, actually, but we're learning again every day. Brett, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That's Squawk Pod for today and for the week. Happy Friday. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Thanks to Kelly Evans for sitting in today. Who will join us next week?
I think it might be Beyonce.
Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Get the best of our TV show right into your ears when you follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. And let us know what you think of Squawk Pod. Tap to rate to give us up to 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, or write a brief review with your thoughts. We'll meet you right back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.